Okay, so let's go ahead and get started then. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Ian Kelmartin. I'm a marine biologist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I work on invertebrate fisheries, so things like abalone and crab and urchin and shrimp.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so how long have you worked for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife?
I've actually only worked for just a year now, so I'm relatively new in the
Yeah.
position.
Okay, that's awesome. And I see that you got your master's in 2018, so you are pretty new at it. Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when did you decide to become a scientist?
Yeah, I feel like marine biologists, that's something like you hear so many people say, like, oh, I always wanted to do that. I've wanted to do it since I was a kid.
Hmm.
That really wasn't the case with me. I grew up actually really wanting to be a pilot or an engineer or something like that. I had my eyes, I come from an engineering family, so
Yeah.
that was always like, that's what I thought I was going to do. And I still
Hmm.
like those kinds of problems. Eventually I got into high school and I had an awesome chemistry teacher,
Yeah.
and I thought I would do that. So I guess that's sort of the first time I was thinking I could do science, because he actually let us go. He'd give us a question and say, okay, figure this out. And we'd have full run of the chemical closet
Oh,
within reason.
wow.
And, we doing things, testing experiments, all that. So that was really cool. I got into college. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in the
Okay.
Northeast, and I went down to college in Charleston, South Carolina.
Hmm.
Started out studying chemistry, and was really lucky to get an internship at a pharmaceutical company right after my freshman year, which is about the coolest thing I thought you could do in
Hmm.
chemistry. Is really frontline. I'm working on developing some anti-cancer drugs, so pretty interesting work, but I just hated being inside. And so about my sophomore year of college, I decided to give marine biology a shot.
Well, that's awesome. Cool. So what kind of schooling did you get?
Yeah, so I went through and did a bachelor's of science in marine biology at the College of Charleston.
Mhm.
Um, I think as critical a thing, my senior year, I worked with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources on an independent study looking into the life cycles of eels that lived in the river.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's one of the things in the sciences and in many other industries, you have to pay your dues,
Yeah.
and so I was extracting these bones there in the ear of a lot of fishes. They're called otoliths, and they're little teeny tiny things. And the American eel, which is like, they can be, I guess you can't really see that, but they
Yeah.
can be a couple feet long. These
Yeah.
things are about the size of a grain of rice.
Hmm.
So I had a freezer full of these things that other people had already caught. I didn't have the fun of going out and catching these. Had
Yeah.
to thaw them and then cut their skull open and grab these otoliths out. And then you cut them in half very carefully, and you see growth rings like trees. So you can age fish that way. So that I spent my senior year of college working on that. Um, but it gave me great insight into what being a working biologist is
Yeah.
all about.
What's funny is
And so then,
we actually had a fish biologist who's a friend of mine who
mhm.
I did an interview with earlier, and he studies the otoliths in sawfish and in these giant catfish in the Amazon, and that's what he does is he studies
Oh,
those ear bones, and it's like so that's fascinating. When you said that, I'm like, I bet he's talking about otoliths.
yeah,
So
definitely.
it's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And it is amazing that we can grab these organisms, and you do have to kill them, unfortunately, but
Yeah,
you can learn a lot from a dead animal. But you can tell pretty much exactly how old they are, which
yeah,
a lot of biologists don't have the advantage of in whatever species they're studying.
Yeah, and he uses it to determine their migration
Mm,
patterns, where they've been in saltwater and
yeah,
freshwater and all of that. So yeah, it's amazing like how much bodies store of any animal or organism that can tell us about their lives, and so it's pretty fascinating. So
definitely.
yeah, those internships are so important.
Hmm.
I totally agree with you on that. Um,
Yes.
and so now you study um, invertebrates, is that correct? So what kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I can.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna continue quickly that because I think after undergraduate can be kind of a difficult thing to
Yeah.
navigate. So I had an internship with a group called the Student Conservation Association,
Okay.
which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually worked bay tracking boa constrictors and manatees for three
Whoa,
months,
that's
which
amazing.
was a wild thing. But yeah, then I decided I do consider myself a fisheries biologist, so I went on to study that at Humboldt State University, studied the effects of marine protected areas on large fish like lingcod, and
Mhm.
which is what I'm holding in my photo here, and rockfishes.
That's cool.
And that about brings us up to today.
To where you are today. So what kind of things do you do
Yeah,
now with your
yeah.
study?
Well, that was really interesting. So stay tuned for next week. This was only part one. And so we'll continue our interview with Ian Kelmartin next week. See you then.